Hello, and welcome back to another City Skylines video. This is part 6 of our save on West Goldfield. Now, right off the bat, there are a few problems that I want to address. Now, these problems are water and electric going to our newly developed area. Now, the simple fix to the electric is going to be just to put lights across the highway. That fixes it because they actually have low voltage power cables. And the second thing I want to fix is the sewage and water, which can easily be fixed by just taking um, underground pipes and running them over here. Now, something that I want to point out is that we unlocked recently signature buildings for medium density. And I think that a building would look very nice right here. That's because, there's just a little bit of space between each building, and it has a very nice outlook on the water, something that I believe a signature building should have. And I don't love the super steep slope at the back, but I don't think it's too big of an issue. Now, what I am going to do with that is just put down a few trees to A, kind of cover it, and B, just make the area look a wee bit nicer. I am seeing that trees don't really want to be placed, but that seems to be fixed now. So we're just going to place down a few trees, and then I'm going to build a road behind here, because there is a ton of space to build even more housing. So now that's done, and I think it would make sense to just put a small roundabout here, because it is a small 2-lane road, and there's not going to be a huge amount of traffic, but there's not enough that it makes sense to have a whole traffic light there. Now, I do also want to expand this road this way, just so that there is a little more space to develop whatever. Now, there's a little more space for building medium density housing, even though there is no demand for it at the moment. Now, I do want to look towards where we are going to possibly build a kind of commercial district, because as at the moment there's only commercial buildings here, and that's not very central. Back here would sort of make sense, but there's going to be a highway going through it soon. So we'll have to see where the highway gets built before I develop any more in that area. But at this point, it makes sense to just develop commercial over here. Now, I do want the larger 6x5 buildings, and it seems like we're going to get a few of those. But this one is a gas station, and it's larger. Now, gas stations particularly, because again, I talked about wanting to be at least a little realistic, would make sense to have near a highway, along a highway, something like that. So what I'm going to do is allow buildings to be built along here, and I'm just going to put a gas station right there. So that would make sense because it's along a huge junction and a small highway. Now, there is still more demand for commercial, so I'll see if I can build any more here. I was able to get one more building down, but there's also office demand. For the offices, I think I'm just going to dedicate a little more space over here. That demand got absolutely eaten up, which is a very good thing. Now, I am seeing that there is a garbage issue here, and that the power plant isn't operating at full efficiency because of it. Now, I'm pretty sure this is a traffic issue, and this is probably an issue that is going to be represented throughout the city if I do not figure out what to do here. Now, I am thinking that the biggest thing to do is just wait for people to move in, and I'm really hoping that that's the solution, because I really don't know what else to do. With that said, I am seeing more industrial demand, even though there isn't space to build industrial here. So that's another thing that I'm hoping will sort of like iron out, where I can get more money and buy this map tile like around here to build industrial. Now another thing I want to keep in mind is where we might want to build a train station that connects here to here, or even over here to all the way over here in the future. Which for that, I think that a good area would be on this side of the highway, because that is where the railroad tracks are. Maybe even somewhere here. Now also, if I am going to be building an industrial area, it would make sense to have a cargo train station too. So we're going to have to figure out what we're doing, because it's going to be an extensive rail network. Now again, we're seeing demand for commercial slowly creeping in, so I'm just going to offer another zoning tile to the companies. And that demand is quickly taken away, and let's see if we can get another building. Doesn't seem like it, but the extra office tile that we had is now gone, and I think that we can use one of the last areas for offices right now. I really do need to figure out what to do with our money and how to get more zoning tiles, or I just need to figure out what we're going to do over here, which I think it would be significantly easier to zone and figure out what I'm going to do if I had these two tiles, particularly this one here. So we're super close to getting that rest of the money we would need to build this, and once we do, I'm just going to buy it instantly. Now that we have this tile, we can actually do some more road networks and figuring out where things are going to go. The last time I made this silly intersection, which I don't think is going to be a great idea in the long run, because it's just going to cause traffic. So I'm just going to put I am just going to expand this road here along, further down, and now we can look towards where we are going to put businesses and shops, which in my opinion, I think that the best area to do this would be here, because it's along a highway, which gives visibility, and it saves space away from the highway for things like housing, which wants to be quiet and not do noise pollution. Now I am seeing this, which means that the crime rate is presumably high, so I do want to check on that. So we are seeing that there is a very high crime probability, even though there's not a lot of crimes per month and the crime success rate is pretty low. What this means to me is that we need to build a larger police station to get a bigger police presence, as there is only 6 patrol cars. But we really just do not have the budget right now, which is one of the biggest difficulties of early game, because you have to make the choice between taking out a ton of loans and not having a lot of hourly income to fix these issues, or between having these issues and slowing down development. Now, I think that it would make sense to just take out the loan and get the money to be able to build another police station. As we can see, though, we're still doing fine on money. So I think that that's going to be the smartest option to increase the amount of police there are in the area. Now, I think that it would make sense to put a police station around here, mainly just because of how the area is, where there's a huge highway network, or going to be a huge highway network here, providing easier access to a larger distance, and because it's on a nice intersection with housing nearby. So I think that I'll just place it around here. Now we should maybe look to schools to see how many students there are and what our capacity is. And as we can see, the high school is absolutely maxed out. So I think it would make sense to build another high school, but over here this time. Now I think that this would be a nice space for a high school, as it's kind of in the middle between everything. Additionally, I do want to build a offshoot from this road over here to go this direction, just so we can maximize the space being used. I am unfortunately going to have to take another loan out to be able to build a high school, because we really just do not want people to not be educated, as that will completely stifle office demand. Now, this seems to be the last loan we'll be able to take, and this is going to be a huge issue to our monthly balance. But I think it's something we have to do, because we really cannot afford to not have educated citizens. And as we can see, it's already filling up fast. And you might say, why didn't I just build extension floors? And the reason for that is just because I want a high school over here too, so that it's closer. Because it's not super realistic to live all the way over here, maybe, and have to go all the way over here to school, especially in a more urban area, which this is. Now, because we took out loans and we're not doing super good on money, I think that we have to figure out how to make more money in taxes. And the way I want to do that is by satisfying demand, especially for offices. So, I just want to figure out where to build offices. Now, this is actually a huge help because we get money and we can even pay the loan off with that or do things that we've been needing to do. Now, we are at the 6th milestone, so we still haven't unlocked any new kind of buildings, but it's still a huge thing that we're getting what we got from that, which is a ton of money. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to pay a lot of our debt back. Now again, another issue I think stifling our income is our geothermal plant not making enough electricity. It's only making half of what it should, and we're exporting much less because we're also consuming some of that power. So I really want to just hope this all goes away, and it seems like it is going to go away soon, but time will tell. Because again, this intersection isn't really helping too much. Now maybe I can increase the size of this road to be a 7-lane road, just so that turning is easier. But that was an accident. I meant this one. And who knows, maybe this will help solve our issue, but it may not, and it still may remain an issue, the traffic. So let's just sit here for a minute and see if this fixes it in 3 times speed. It now seems like the backlog is over here, and that the issue could be solved with a roundabout, but that would mean destroying these 2 buildings. But I think that in this situation, that's gonna be the lesser evil than having to deal with all of this traffic, as it really just is not sustainable. So we're going to get rid of that zone in case we need to build a larger roundabout, but now we'll just throw it in 3 times again and see if this fixes the issue. Now I think the roundabout helped a little bit to help the traffic here, and I think it has been helpful to the traffic here also, as it will most likely eventually iron itself out. Now I think we can turn our attention back to this area and look at our school, which has already filled up so much, which proves why it made sense to build that school, because even the extension here would have filled up by now. Now I am seeing a demand for low rent housing, which I'm considering where to build it. And I think it might make sense to build a unit here, because it is just so close to the highway, which I think is kind of quite fitting for it, but it's also not like the highway is super busy and super loud. The demand has seemed to gone away, but if it does come back, I'm just going to build a house here. Now again, I keep saying I want to build offices here, but I keep not doing it. But I'm genuinely going to look to build an office here right after I spend some of our money on paying off our loan. And I really do not know where I want to build these offices, but I guess we could build it in this kind of corner here. And I think we can do that by expanding this road here to go all the way over here, and eventually curve to follow near along the highway. Now, we can take a smaller road that's 2 lanes off here and bring it over here. I'm just gonna start developing the road area and the layout so that we can just zone in offices. Now we're actually struggling for money so much that we could not afford to build the road there for a minute. But now, we are just going to get rid of the zoning here and just build our offices. And that seems to have helped the demand for offices. Now I think it would make sense to expand these roads this way, and maybe put a few businesses along them. Because I do really want to get a few businesses over here. And I think that this is going to end up being a pretty dense area with probably 20 houses, which each will eventually have 120 people in it. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about the highway and this small road being next to each other, but we'll probably put some trees and it'll be better. And over here, I'm just going to take another smaller road and put it like this. Now I'm going to use the curve tool and that should be good. Now we can just zone on a few businesses. Now additionally, I think I want to put businesses along this road just because it is on a main road, and I think that's a really realistic thing to do. Now we seem to have filled the demand of both offices and commercial now. Now I do want to keep in mind that we should maybe not zone in too many along this main road, because I do want to put more high-density businesses along a road like this on an area that's going to eventually be heavily populated. Now it seems that demand has died down again, but we have seemed to recover some of our hourly income. Now it's important to keep note that the loan interest is over $100,000 per month, which is a huge amount of money. Now I do just want to check in on the schools, especially the elementary school, to see how it is faring against how many people are going to it. And it seems that it's doing pretty alright. Now, I do see that industrial demand is very important, but another thing piggybacking off industrial is production, especially in raw materials. And here we can see that we are making so much green, because we can see the light blue is the production, and that the consumption is the orange, and we are not consuming a lot of it, which gives us a huge surplus, which we are now exporting. Same thing with livestock. Now I did forget to build areas for vegetables and for cotton, which I might actually switch a few of the grain areas to, just because I do not just want to be exporting, especially if we don't fully need this demand. Now, that should mostly fix our issue for not being able to make enough vegetables once it settles in. Now, I think we should just kick it into 3 times and wait a little bit, because there is no demand for anything except low density, which I don't want to build, and for industrial. I did just zone in a few offices too because the demand came back. But again, we see that not much has changed, except we gained some population and got some money. Because other than that, there wasn't really demand. And again, I want to just pay back our loan fast as we can, because it will increase our hourly trend of money. Now at this point, I think it would make sense to really start thinking about how we're going to do the highway system and how we are going to build the industrial area in this area. I do want to keep in mind that we need a buffer zone between here and the industrial area, because we can see that the wind direction goes this way, and if we build something here, the pollution is still probably going to go to here, especially if it's on a larger scale. And same thing, if we build over here, pollution's probably going to go over here. So we need to keep in mind that wherever we build, we must be aware of where the pollution is, because it could cause large issues. Again, I'm just gonna kick it into 3 times and wait and see if we get any more demand. Something worth mentioning is that the traffic had seemed to ease up as more and more people have moved in, and we can see that our power plant has gotten its garbage trips to it, meaning that we are making more money. So it seems that one of the houses that we set on fire, even though it's raining, and now it's time to see how well our fire services work. And it seems like they work pretty well, as this fire truck is already close there. Now, something else I saw before was that, and it's still a thing, is this person's ambulance hasn't arrived. Well, it just did, but something that I want to maybe consider is, instead of having 2 clinics right near each other, maybe we move the smaller one over here, because you can see that the healthcare coverage is really bad. So I think that I'm just going to put this, like, right here. Now we can see that we have our city services right here. Now I'm also seeing that there is a ton of people trying to come over here, presumably because of either their jobs being offices or working in the commercial shops, or because they want to go shopping. So I don't want to upgrade this whole road to a 4-lane road, but what I will do is quickly just pause the game and take a road that's a 3-lane asymmetric and just bring it over here, like this. Now this should allow for more people to be able to turn, and should fix our issue. I do also want to just fix this though, to be more realistic and not like super weirdly shaped. And, oh, oops, I did not have the purple one, but let me just fix this really fast. Now that's solved, and our traffic should be lessened up, because I really do not want any traffic issues over here, because we've seen what it can do over here, such as, cutting off a lot of our income because trash isn't being collected, or causing emergency services to not respond. It also seems that there's traffic on this road, and I'm surprised that this company is in a deficit too, because they have a lot of customers, which means that we place this in a good spot. Now again, I think that the last thing I'm going to do in this video is maybe look at some signature buildings and what it will take to unlock them, to see if maybe we can work towards them. Now it seems like we can't get commercial yet, because we don't even have the first one. But if we go to commercial, we can see that there's this kind of bar that just needs low density buildings built. Same thing with the auto center, you just have to build a lot of buildings, and it doesn't seem that there's a level requirement. Same thing with here. This is actually this is a museum, and it requires people to be transported from ships. This I had in another City Skylines, and it's actually very cool, and has like 1,000 employees, which is insanely cool. So yeah, those seem to be very cool buildings. And for the industrial, it just takes building like specific kind of things, like as raw materials, like build oil drills, build stone or minerals extracting places, right? We already have the dairy house, paper factories to build forestry areas, right? And we can see as we go down that it just takes small requirements. Sometimes they're a little larger. And I think we'll just work to unlocking a lot of those. Now the last thing that I'm going to do is zone in the last of these buildings that have demand. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and I really want to thank you for watching through the whole thing. It really means a lot. If you have any suggestions, especially on games to play, please let me know down below.